Hey, Paul, good to see you again. I just wanted to ask you a couple questions before we go on, and maybe Brina, if you could chime in as well. One of the things that we were speaking about as we were recording one of our earlier sessions is the challenge of not following the process and being pro, right? And just kind of like tell me like in a synopsis what was happening and how can everyone watching this, how can they learn from that? You know what I'm talking about, right?
I mean, well, refresh me. There's been a lot of
This is the client that didn't follow the steps and was struggling to get access to their account.
I mean, that's many of them, but no, it's
I
yeah,
guess the point I'm making is there are checklists that we've got created. We're going to drop one of the checklists down and just how to help you get access to your account. But this is just the whole situation where they weren't authenticating their accounts. I should have totally prepped you for this one, but anyway.
no, it's great. That's why it's live. It's just like, man, yeah, no, they weren't authenticating their accounts, and it was just a whole doo-doo show trying to, with all this back and forth, and there was it was one of those, how it's like, hey, this meeting could have been an email kind of thing. It was one of those like, this could have been like a 5-minute conversation type thing,
Right.
but it just got dragged out super hard. And then is this the one where they're having to send in their government documents to Meta that one? Oh geez, yeah. Oh, that's the one you were talking about. I guess I should have figured. Yeah, man. This company,
let me preface this for everyone. So this was a situation where somebody had set up their accounts beforehand, right? And then they started working with us, with you guys, specifically with you, Paul and Brina, and it turns out they didn't have access to their stuff, and so they had to go through that process. So that's the foundation of this.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So like, if another business or an agency creates your page for you or claims ownership of it to run ads or post content or whatever, like that's a huge risk, because now you have to prove, like, if you want to get ownership of these assets, which you need to prove that, again, we are a legitimate business, we're the rightful owners of it. And there's this whole resolution process to get through, and it easily takes at least a month or two, and sometimes it doesn't even work. We had a celebrity, I mean, you'll probably remember this, Brina, he got his page stolen, and despite going through top support, and this was a celebrity page. There was, hundreds of thousand people. They've been working on this page for years, and we went through this whole appeals and whatever process, and they still were like, nope, page is toast. And it's like, we sent in like the passport. We're like, obviously the person on the content on the page is the same person, and nope, totally lost it and had to start all over again. And it was painful.
And that's the thing, and that's kind of why I wanted to bring that up is, and Brina, I'm going to turn to you in a second, but the key point with this is that when we, I got to move myself up here. There we go. When we look at this and we struggle with why aren't we able to achieve some of these results? Why can't we take action? Why can't we get to our ads account? It's probably because somebody set it up before, even before possibly you were working at the winery. And you've got to be able to take back this. Now, the other side of that conversation is, as you're beginning to go and potentially look to outsource your advertising, because it's the new year, it's January, and you're beginning to consider, okay, what are we going to do? Let's find a partner to outsource. Be very careful that you control access to your accounts. Don't let them set that up and take ownership of that, right? Like, so Brina, when we talk about this, what was an example where you've had to go through and struggle with that with a client too, and help them get through it?
Yeah, actually, you brought up the great point of the ownership. Like, that's probably something that we've seen a lot. I don't have a specific example off the top of my head, but it is something that happens quite often. Is somebody will hire like a marketing agency, and they're like, what do? We just need to start with the the basics. We need you to just go and set everything up. And so they kind of do this like done for you. They look for somebody to do a done for you approach. And so they get really hands off. And then when they go to, okay, maybe fire that agency, or they need to go in and do some, tweaking here and there, they find out they don't have access to certain parts because all the ownership lies with that person.
Yeah.
And people get really scared of admin access, which is something that it's just,
Rightfully
admin
so.
access.
It's terrifying.
Right, yeah, rightfully so. And that's, I've worked in tech support for many years, and one of the big problems was I would always see the person buying the application or who should have ownership of it. They weren't necessarily the ones working in it. And so they were like, hey, I'm just going to find a trusted person that I can throw in there as the admin. And then something happens, life happens, the person moves on to a new opportunity, or there's bad blood that happens and there's a falling out. And next thing you know, they're locked out of their ads account, they're locked out of their management account. To kind of Paul's what Paul was talking about with the verification process, that's also huge too, is because a lot of times, like, I haven't dealt with it as much as Paul has, but like one of the things that I have seen is where um somebody will go and set up the account, and then it's like, okay, well, we need verification. And so because that account was set up under the other person and not the true owner, that's where the verification process gets a little wonky. Like, we've run
Yeah.
ads for political people, and because it was a group running the political ads, it's like, well, how do you know who actually needs to do the verification on that then? And so there's so many little problems that you can run into. And that's a big one with ownership, is just making sure that you have the right people, and not being so short-sighted as to what your team is going to look like maybe 6 months to a year from now. Like, are you going to have those same people? Are they going to be actively working in it? And do you need to have 20 people having access to the same page? So that's kind of some of the stuff that Paul and I really look at when we're setting up ad accounts.
It's such a great segue because as we're creating modules and training and all that stuff, Paul and I were going through this earlier. So those of you, for members, when you go through the training, and I think it's module 2, I think it is module 2 or 3. I can't remember what it is. But anyway, I'm wearing this exact shirt, and Paul's wearing that exact shirt because we are having this exact conversation right now in the training component of it. So it's critical, and for you that are struggling with this, we're going to be pulling together some tools and resources for you to help you out. But I think the summary point behind all of this, and why I brought it up on the lead here, is that it's critical that as you move through and as you control, I'm going to move myself here. Let's do this. How do we do that? No, there we go. That's what I want. Okay. As I'm still learning tech, right? Trying to run my own studio here at the same time we're doing this. But as you go through and as you figure this stuff out, yeah, and you begin to either take ownership, you begin to really dive in through the learnings that you're going to get through these lives and all the other resources we put forward. That's going to be a critical error. So I think, if you did nothing else today after watching this, is go into business.facebook.com and see if you actually own your stuff. Right. I mean, that's going to be a critical thing. So that's your action step today. If you want to check out, cool. We got another 10 minutes of this. So there's some other great stuff. So Paul, I want to turn to you for a quick second. And I want to actually, Brina, we're going to flip over to you because I know you do a lot more of the ad side of things. So Brina, here's the question. Put you on the spot. Okay. In 2022, because you were on the round table, 2022, from a Facebook perspective and Meta as a whole, right? What trend was started, or what was happening in 22 that is going to be totally in 23, that anybody that's working in the Meta side of the winery's business, what do they need to be paying attention to that possibly they weren't looking at last year, but it's critically important that they focus on this year?
I would say a big thing is just the demographic changes within the ads portion, like when you're actually going to run your ads to people.
Assuming you have
Um,
access to your ads account, right?
Assuming you have access to that, yes. Hopefully you do. Yeah, that was something that really struck me is just the changes in demographics is, before you saw this a lot with real estate mainly, but Facebook or Meta would kind of limit the demographics that you could run ads to. Like you can't be discriminatory with your ads, you can't leave people out. And so one of the things that Paul and I have been having conversations about this actually is just like, well, what happens when you have like you're targeting a certain demographic, like say your product only targets women. Well, Meta might sometimes like limit your ability to be able to choose between a man or woman. So you're like, well, okay, I'm just kind of like throwing my ad spend at
So,
half
so,
of a pop. Mhm,
so that's a really good thing. So let me ask you this. So let's look at Pinot Grigio. Okay,
mhm.
it's a white wine. I'm not saying it's a gender specific, but three people I know that are close to my family are huge Pinot fans, and they're women. So if I wanted to target them in a lookalike audience, and I wanted specifically to focus on women, how do we get around that so I don't do my ad spend to men? Because my winery, my demographic is we got 75% female buyers, Pinot. How do we get around Facebook's demographic issues? Any suggestions on that?
Yeah, I definitely suggest doing behavior-based interest
Mm,
targeting because it just tells you, because quite honestly, like while a majority of your audience might be women, there's still going to be those subtle little behaviors between men and women that they both share that will allow you to target those Pinot Grigio fans.
okay, perfect. So it could be brands. So you could focus on brands, possibly magazines, things like that that are traditionally gender biased. Would that be a fair way to do it?
That is, I think that's still really surface level because, like, while a majority of women might like watching The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, you still have that small subset of men who are going to like that as well. And
Sure.
so, it's more things like there's some behavior targeting in there around like purchases and when they last visited things. You could even look at like relationship statuses,
Hmm.
like do some research on, okay, that a majority of people buying that kind of wine are recently out of a relationship. Well, that's something that you can target on
I thought that was
Meta.
Ben and
So
Jerry's. I thought that was going to be like a bucket of Ben and Jerry's.
hey,
All of a
Ben and
sudden, your
Jerry's and some good
consumption goes.
Pinot.
True enough. True enough. Okay, cool. And I guess then the other part of that is testing. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, testing is a big one, and testing is something that it's based on your budget. So if you have a smaller budget, you're going to have to look at more long-term testing. You're going to have to look at more of those subtle changes. If you have a larger budget to put towards your ads, you're actually going to be able to test a little bit faster, just because you can throw more money at it. You can get more people in that funnel. You can see how they operate. And once again, like a big thing that I would say when you're testing, because I'm not a big fan of, um, I'm not a big fan of like just throwing all your money at it and then looking at the data. Like I like
What?
to,
I thought that's what the agencies told us to do.
a majority of them probably do. Yeah. Normally, if I have a budget of just say like $10,000, I might start with like 2,500 and throw that at something. And then as it works, because you can set up like subsets of funnels based
Right.
on how you're looking at it. So if you say, okay, I want to have one funnel that I'm going to spend, and maybe if you can take half of that $10,000 budget, maybe you say, okay, 5 grand of this is going to go towards just general testing. I want to see what, like you're throwing spaghetti at a wall and seeing what sticks.
Mhm.
And then you
I
can
love
take
it.
that other 5,000 and start breaking it down into your more your remarketing funnels, into those that are your retargeting funnels, things like that. So that's kind of what I would recommend, is just trying to and really looking at what the data is telling you about their behavior, and not just what the data is telling you,
Perfect.
because you can see that I know that through plays is a big one. So one of the things I like to do when you're doing video marketing is I like to actually see at what point did a majority of the people stop watching the videos in the ads.
Such a great point.
Yeah, and then I go to that point in the video and see what are they talking about, like how possibly can I see that they lost interest? Do we need to shorten the video? Do we need to maybe just make one video on like the topic of the first like third of the video? So that's
Or
kind
even
of
make a change like we just did here to just snap
exactly.
attention back. Right.
Exactly.
It can't, for the I'm riveted, but for those of you who aren't as technical, you might have just like, okay, observe.
Yeah, that could be a whole segment on itself, is just like reading data of ads, and that's something like I will nerd out on all day, every
You're
day.
some of
All
the
right.
best in the
Okay. So
world.
here's what I'm gonna do, Brina. I'm gonna challenge you on the members section, which we're gonna cut over to shortly. But I got one question for Paul before we do.
Sure.
On the members section, I think what we need to do is just a total like nerd out how to analyze ads data, because that's critical when we look at. Did I just make your year?
Yes. It's only the beginning, but you already made my year.
Awesome,
Realize
awesome.
what
Hey,
it
Brina. For those of you watching, I mean, what Brina's talking about, I know it's some detailed stuff, but a little change in something such as a policy or a process or a procedure in terms of the tool that we use. In this case, the demographic element within Facebook ads, we have to change how we do things. It's ever evolving. We can't just go, oh, well, we're just going to keep on running the same ad set and the same audience. And it's always changing. So here at Heroes, one of the things that we're going to be doing is really helping you with that, helping you understand kind of where this is, what we can do to, there we go, grow myself here, what we can do to continuously provide that. And that's really kind of why we've created this public section of the discussion. So Paul, I'm going to turn to you real quick, and then we're gonna say goodbye to our friends in the public forums, and we're going to move on to the member section. But before we do, Paul, can you in like 2 minutes, a minute, I'm going to cut you off to a minute. Can you share some success story of what Brina was talking about?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll give a real simple example, and I apologize for the noise in the background. I was trying to secretly like share the stream, and anyway.
It's all good.
Talking about videos, watching it through. I remember a couple years ago we were running. There was 3 videos, and it was being used to drive traffic. And we were looking at the data, and 2 of the videos had pretty good viewership, but there was a really sharp just on this other video. Like people were clearly dropping off more than the rest of the 2 videos. So we look at it and we're like, okay, what's happening in this video? Like, why are people just not caring? And at that point in the video, the person giving their introduction kind of was just beating their chest a little bit, not necessarily introducing, I'm so and so that does such and such and blah blah blah. And like, given what the objective of the campaign was, given who we were targeting, nobody cares.
Right.
And the data showed that clearly at that point in the video, most people switched off. Whereas with the other ones, they might have introduced themselves, but it was like, hey, here's who I am, what I do, and I want to talk to you about blah. Not,
right,
here's all my accomplishments, which again, nobody really cares about, at least until they know how much you care.
Right. And that's why we haven't done intros right now. Because we're trying to provide value. So with that said, Paul, thank you. Brina, thank you. Stick around, everyone that's a member, and Paul and Brina, please don't sign off. But for those of you who are on the public group, please click on like, subscribe, comment. If you have questions about anything that we've talked about so far, please do fill that out, fill the comments out, whether it's in Facebook or YouTube. And then next week on the session, either directly on the Social Hero side or possibly in the roundtable, we'll bring it up to the whole group and have a discussion around that. That's really what we're here to do is provide access to this information. So with that said, have a great month. Your action step right now is to finish this here and go and check, do you have access to your business accounts? Okay. And if not, then go claim them. Until then, have a great week, everyone. Cheers. And we will see you